In a quiet African village, Makeba, a beautiful orphan raised by a greedy uncle, fights daily for dignity and survival. With only her kind cousin Doris by her side, Makeba endures rejection, mistreatment, and countless marriage traps set by her uncle, all to steal her inheritance. But one act of kindness to a mysterious old man changes her fate forever. When a royal contest brings a prince searching for a bride, Makeba has no idea her humility and pure heart have already captured his. A tale of betrayal, secret royalty, and true love unfolds, proving that goodness never goes unnoticed, and the meek can indeed inherit the crown. Sit back, relax, and find out what happened in this wonderful story. Makeba, a beautiful and hardworking young African woman, lived under the roof of her uncle, Okoro, after losing both parents. Her father, a respected village elder, had left behind wealth and land, but tradition demanded the estate be managed by Okoro until Makeba married. Okoro saw her not as a niece but as a burden standing in the way of full ownership of the estate. He mistreated her often, overburdened her with house chores, and publicly humiliated her. In the same house lived Doris and Beatrice, Okoro's daughters. Doris, the eldest, was kind-hearted, humble, and deeply compassionate. She often comforted Makeba and helped her where she could. Beatrice, on the other hand, was her father's shadow, mischievous, selfish, and proud. Every day in that house was a test of Makeba's strength and patience, and she only found joy in Doris's companionship. Okoro, driven by greed, plotted to marry Makeba off quickly. He arranged for suitors to come by, many of whom were either old, blind, or desperate, willing to marry without a bride price. Makeba always refused, holding on to her dignity and dreams, despite her uncle's rage. Beatrice mocked her constantly, pushing her to say yes, while Doris supported her cousin with gentle reassurance. One day, a suitor arrived with his blind brother, claiming he would take Makeba without delay. Okoro was thrilled, but Makeba, tired of the constant harassment, threw the man out. A fight ensued, but Doris shielded her, even threatening to leave the house. Okoro grew more desperate, and his plans more dangerous. One bright morning, the three girls headed to the stream with their pots. Along the path, they saw an old, frail man struggling with a broken calabash. Doris and Makeba immediately offered to help. Beatrice, uninterested, ran ahead to return home early. The old man was weak and grateful. Together, Doris and Makeba carried his things and escorted him to his small hut deep in the forest path. The man was touched by Makeba's kindness and blessed them. Makeba promised to return and help him with food and chores. That evening, when they got home late, Beatrice had already lied to Okoro, claiming the girls had gone off with young men. Furious, Okoro beat Makeba and scolded Doris. But their hearts remained kind and strong. From that day, Makeba made it a point to visit the old man after chores. She cooked for him, swept his hut, and made sure he was comfortable. Doris sometimes joined her, and the old man would tell them stories about the kingdom, its history, and values. He became fond of Makeba, often calling her his daughter. His wisdom and presence gave Makeba the peace and comfort she never found in her uncle's home. Meanwhile, Okoro noticed her happiness and grew more suspicious. He began to watch her moves, waiting for a reason to strike. News spread across the kingdom. Prince Wilson had returned from abroad with his best friend, Stanley. Both young men were charming, noble, and ready for marriage. The king declared a public contest for the maidens of the land. Whoever proved herself wise and knowledgeable in the kingdom's affairs would be considered for marriage to either the prince or his friend. Excitement buzzed through every village. Beatrice saw it as her grand opportunity. She began practicing daily, reading village scrolls, rehearsing etiquette. Okoro, hoping for royal connection, bought fine clothes for Doris and Beatrice. He ignored Makeba entirely, mocking her for thinking she stood a chance. While Beatrice obsessed over the contest, Doris quietly prepared too. One night, Makeba sat beside Doris and shared everything she had learned from the old man, from royal lineages to village myths and taboos. Doris listened attentively, and Makeba smiled, happy to contribute. Though Makeba had no intention of participating, she found joy in helping Doris. Okoro, meanwhile, ensured Beatrice had everything she needed, reminding her daily that the royal family was their only ticket to wealth and fame. His greed blinded him to true virtue. The village square was alive with color and noise. Maidens from far and wide stood in rows, eager and adorned. Doris stood modestly, Beatrice stood flamboyantly, but Makeba was nowhere to be found. She had gone to the old man's hut. The contest began. Wise questions were asked about the royal family, traditions, the kingdom's laws, and ancient proverbs. Many faltered, but Doris answered each with clarity and humility. At the end, the crowd cheered her brilliance. Beatrice, flustered and confused, stormed off the stage. That night, whispers filled the palace. Back in the palace, the king gathered Wilson and Stanley. "Who among the maidens do you find worthy?" he asked. Wilson, the calm prince, was unimpressed by all he saw. Stanley, however, chose Doris. She was intelligent and composed. The next morning, the prince, Stanley and his friend, Wilson went to Okoro's house. They came for Doris. Beatrice, seeing royalty approach, quickly cleaned up and dressed glamorously. As expected, Okoro paraded Doris and Beatrice before them, ignoring Makeba who was in the backyard. But Wilson found a moment to speak with her briefly and was even more taken by her simplicity and grace. He said nothing, but his heart stirred. But Wilson couldn't forget the quiet girl he saw briefly at Okoro's house during their tour, Makeba. Her humility had struck him. That night, he confessed his feelings to Stanley, and they made a pact. Stanley would pretend to be the prince, and Wilson would remain the friend. Only they would know the truth. Stanley later invited Doris to the palace for a tour, and Doris insisted Makeba accompany her. Okoro agreed reluctantly but told Beatrice to follow them instead. Beatrice dressed like royalty and behaved like one too, loud, commanding, and self-centered. At the palace, she tried to impress but only made a spectacle of herself. Wilson, meanwhile, found quiet moments to watch Makeba, impressed by her calm demeanor. That evening, he told his father, the king, everything. The next morning, the king sent royal messengers to summon Okoro to the palace. Okoro panicked, uncertain whether the news would bring fortune or shame. Dressed in his best agbada, he walked nervously into the royal hall, bowing deeply before the king. To his surprise, the king smiled. "Prince Stanley has chosen Doris, and Prince Wilson has shown interest in another maiden, your niece, Makeba," he announced. Okoro's heart sank. Doris? Makeba? Not Beatrice? He forced a smile, nodded, and gave his consent. The king announced a royal visit to Okoro's home the following day to meet the maidens formally. While Okoro accepted the news outwardly, bitterness brewed within. That night, he paced his compound, murmuring in anger. He couldn't bear the thought of Makeba receiving royal favor. Beatrice, just as furious, listened to her father in silence until he revealed his plan: to send Makeba far away on an errand the next morning. Before dawn, Okoro woke Makeba and gave her a sealed calabash. "Take this to your cousin in the distant village of Oji. Tell him it's urgent. He must only receive palm wine from your hands," he lied. Though puzzled, Makeba obeyed, not suspecting her uncle's scheme. On her journey to Oji, Makeba met Wilson and Stanley riding in their royal carriage. Shocked and delighted to see her, Wilson insisted she join them. "We'll drive you there and back," he said with a warm smile. Makeba hesitated, but their sincerity won her over. They traveled together, and Wilson used every moment to know her better. Her humility, intelligence, and pure heart made him fall deeper in love. When they returned to Okoro's house, Makeba stepped out of the carriage to the stunned faces of Okoro and Beatrice. Their plan had failed. From that day, Okoro began acting like a new man. He gave Makeba money, assigned her no chores, and began treating her like royalty. He even praised her beauty in front of the villagers. Beatrice, however, couldn't hide her jealousy. But Makeba wasn't fooled. Doris warned her, "His kindness is a mask, sister. Don't let it deceive you." Makeba nodded. She continued visiting the old man, and one evening, he said, "Your kindness will lift you far above those who despise you." Okoro called Makeba aside one quiet evening. "Please, my daughter," he began, feigning affection, "reject the prince. He will choose Beatrice if you step aside. We must honor family." Makeba recoiled in anger. "Family? You never treated me like one. I will not reject a man who sees me for who I am," she snapped. Doris heard the commotion and rushed to support her. Okoro was left speechless. Humiliated and desperate, Okoro devised another plan. One day, after seeing Makeba leave for the old man's hut, he and Beatrice gathered two idle young men. They stormed into the old man's home and dragged Makeba to the palace. "We caught her sleeping with this old man," Okoro cried. The king was horrified. The young men swore to have seen the act. Beatrice cried fake tears. Makeba, confused and frightened, could only beg, "I did nothing wrong." Doris rushed into the palace as soon as she heard. She knelt before the king. "It's a lie. Makeba is innocent. That old man is our friend, a wise elder we've helped for months." Wilson and Stanley entered next. "We know her well. We do not believe these accusations," Wilson added, his voice steady. But the king, overwhelmed by conflicting voices, stood to give his judgment. Just then, a loud voice echoed through the hall. "Wait." The old man entered, walking with firm steps. The guards tried to stop him, but he raised a medallion. Everyone froze. The king gasped. "My friend," he said. The old man revealed his identity: Stanley's father, the king's closest friend. He had disguised himself to find a worthy bride for his son. "Makeba treated me with kindness, not knowing who I was. These people only saw a beggar." The court fell silent. The old man narrated everything: the stream, the chores, the meals, and the lies. He pointed at Okoro and Beatrice. They accused her out of jealousy. The king turned to his guards. "Okoro and Beatrice shall be banished from this village. Their hearts are too dark for this land." Okoro begged. Beatrice wailed. But the king was firm. As Okoro and Beatrice were led away, the villagers rejoiced. Doris hugged Makeba tightly. "You are free, sister." That night, the palace celebrated. Makeba, clothed in royal garments, stood beside Wilson. Doris smiled beside Stanley. The old man, now dressed in noble robes, watched from his throne beside the king. A week later, a grand ceremony was held. Prince Wilson and Makeba were engaged, and Stanley officially proposed to Doris. The crowd cheered as the king declared them royal daughters of the land. "You are both blessings to this kingdom," the king said. Makeba and Doris held hands, their hearts overwhelmed with gratitude and joy. Makeba moved into the palace with Doris. She found peace she never thought possible. No more insults, no more beatings, only love and honor. Wilson gave her a garden to tend, a quiet place where she found healing. Doris took up a noble role in the royal court, helping young girls in the village learn about tradition and wisdom. Together, the two cousins made the kingdom better. One day, Makeba returned to the old man's hut, now rebuilt and luxurious. She knelt before him. "Thank you for seeing me, for testing me, for loving me like a father." He smiled. "You passed the greatest test. Love without expectation. That is true royalty." Under Wilson and Stanley's guidance, the kingdom grew stronger. Villagers respected wisdom, kindness, and truth more than ever. Doris and Makeba became role models for all young women. Even the king said, "These women have taught us that love, humility, and truth are more valuable than gold." The royal wedding day came with music, color, and dancing. Makeba and Doris, radiant in royal attire, walked beside their grooms. As vows were exchanged, tears of joy flowed. From orphan to princess, Makeba's journey reminded everyone that life does not end with suffering. With grace, patience, and truth, even the lowliest flower can bloom into royalty. And so, they lived happily ever after, honored by the people, blessed by the king, and guided by love forever. Kindness, humility, and truth may go unnoticed for a while, but they always shine in the end. Those who treat others with love and integrity, even when no one is watching, are the ones truly worthy of honor. And those who build their lives on lies and greed will always be exposed. Be like Makeba. Stay true, even in silence. What's the lesson you learned from this story? Drop it in the comment section because I will like to read them, and guess what? I have another amazing story coming up soon. So subscribe now and join the Firelight Tale family so you will be the first person to watch it when it drops. Thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate.